All right, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Thank you for watching that Overwatch match, if that's where you're coming from. We're excited to have you here. It is, where's my notes? I can't even think of the month. It's February 19th. There's been so much going on lately. February 19th, should be podcast number 18, and we do have some guests with us again. We have Michael Jones. Say hello.
Hey guys.
Michael's from Drury Esports in Springfield, Missouri, correct?
That's correct.
And then, as always, my second chair, Keith Kennedy, down there at the bottom today.
I'm from the other Springfield.
From the other Springfield. No, it's not Springfield.
It's Chatham, yes. I'm sorry.
It's Chatham.
I'm sorry.
Get it right.
Sorry.
Like, you yelled at me about that. It's Chatham.
Yeah, but I'm back on stream a whole 5 minutes later.
Yeah, thanks for the break. But now you got your camera on, so now we can actually see you.
That's not a good thing.
I can change that. Hang on. No, just kidding.
Okay, so yeah, it's awesome to have you, man. Really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you on for good, like, the past year or so, and we just never clicked. And it's like, oh, yeah, any of these 3 weeks. And I'm like, we're busy all those 3 weeks. And so it's like, so I was like, all right. And then it's nice to get you back on. I'm hoping to have a bunch more guests on here as we go through this whole esports endeavor. And I want to keep doing weekly things, and definitely want to have some collegiate players and possibly even pro players and things like that. And so, I want to get it started off with you because we've had several conversations over the years. I mean, I think you were there at our first LAN event in Chicago, I believe, or the first one we started inviting people to. And I think that, we talked for a while there. We talked at a couple of other events and tournaments, and I think you portray what we want at the high school level, what we want the collegiate scene to actually look like. So that's why I figured have you on, answer some questions from the kids, and also just talk about your program and what it means to be a collegiate esports athlete, because a lot of the kids watching right now, they have no idea what is offered to them or what's able to be offered to them and how that actually can go for their future in their career. So
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate it. Second of all, I have the chat up as well, so feel free to ask any particular questions you guys may have about collegiate esports, about the recruiting process. I'll start by saying that anytime I talk with a recruit, because in addition to being a collegiate coach, I was an admissions counselor for a year, so I'm kind of well versed in that whole process of selecting a college. First thing I always say is do your research. If you were looking at this 5 years ago and a college said, hey, come play for our esports team, it's like, you got to jump on that because they were probably the only one.
There's like
Robert
three
Morris.
at that point. Rob Morris
Yeah.
and like one or two other ones that no one ever knew about.
Yeah. So we're now almost, I think, to 100, or rather 200 varsity esports programs across the country. On top of that, just about every college has a club. So before you worry too much about esports and what even the programs are like, start with the school. Don't pick a school just off of the quality of their esports program. If that's something you're very keen on and you want to work in esports after college, that should be one of your top factors. But definitely look at the school itself first. Not all varsity programs are created equal. Not all club programs are created equal, and not all schools are created equal. Especially depending on your needs and wants out of the college experience. So, for example, I actually went to college just across the street here in Springfield at Missouri State University, which is a big state institution. I loved it there. It was great for me. There were a lot of social experiences. I was in a college fraternity. I was in student government. I got to be involved in a lot of different things. But that's not always the case at a big state school, especially if you're doing, say, like band or a traditional sport. That kind of becomes your thing, and that becomes your whole world. So one of the bigger advantages at a smaller school is that you can do a wide variety of things. There's a lot more opportunity available to you to kind of be multidisciplinary rather than having to hard specialize. A lot of trade-offs with your educational style, what you prefer, whether that's a large lecture hall with a bunch of people or more hands-on attention from professors. Look at the quality of the majors at those schools. So, for example, to plug Drury, we have one of the best architecture programs in the country. But if you want to just study something else, it's not that we don't have a good program for that, but there might be another school that's particularly strong in that area. And so don't rule anything out. Once you're a junior, start putting in the visits, start talking with coaches. if you visit a collegiate esports program, come prepared with questions, come prepared with what's important to you. See if you can talk to some players, and see kind of what their day-to-day experience is like. Ask them questions. See if it's a culture that's going to fit for you. So there's so many factors to weigh, but that's kind of the general advice I give up top. And like I said, even when recruits come to our school, and even if they're heavily considering us, even if we were always number one on their short list, I always say, do your research, look around. A rising tide raises all ships is my outlook. Yeah, it gets competitive, and there's certain recruits that I'd love to have come play for us, and it feels bad when they pick another school. But at the end of the day, all I want is what's best for the student athlete, and if they're going to come here and not have a good experience, then what's the point? So,
and that's also just a reality of collegiate recruiting for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
is that you can't get everyone you want, because that's kind of not how recruiting works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've been meaning to ask you about your saying what was it, rising tide raises all ships?
Yep.
Since you told me that was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I've been trying to recall exactly how that phrasing was, because I think that's.
I wish I could coin that. That's an adage. So.
Yeah. Where does that come from? Because I want to look that up, because that literally.
I don't know.
Yeah, that literally is something that I've taken to heart, because it's really about raising everyone. It's getting everyone on the right level at some form. You don't want to lock off or close off anyone in particular. Like, if they want to run something, let them run with it, and if they're better than you, then become better, so that you raise your level and not try to sink down to theirs. And that's something I think is really important for the industry as a whole, is to bring everyone up, because we're not at that point where we can be self-sufficient and be this dominating thing, because there's a lot of people that a lot of people who still don't like esports, and don't like that it's being they're playing games, and we still have a lot of pushback from that. So I think taking that mind frame and trying to get everyone up on your level, I think, is really important, and not trying to take advantage of people. And like you said, do your research for colleges. There are a lot of schools out there. It's yeah, you can get a full ride scholarship, but they offer nothing in any of the majors that you want, and so
you're just there,
right?
That's another thing. If I could chime in on the topic of scholarships, is most schools do not offer full ride scholarships, at least purely in a talent or merit scholarship. Yeah. If you're strong academically, and strong in your game, and especially if you are eligible on your FAFSA for maybe a Pell Grant or something, then you can get functionally a full ride at a lot of places. But there's only a handful of colleges that are going to throw a bunch of money at you just for the talent side, just for esports.
Yeah, and unless you're a pro player coming down back to college, it's highly unlikely that some of those schools will. Not completely unlikely, but you have to be.
You're going to need to
be
GM average at least in League of Legends. 4K SR plus at least in Overwatch to be sort of considered for those. So definitely ask a lot of questions, but keep in mind how you come across as well. I get a lot of initial messages from recruits, so I might post something in a Discord that says, here's a bunch of information on our school, let me know if you have any questions, and then they type at me, how much, ? And that's it. I'm just like, what?
That's really helpful, isn't it?
Yeah. That's not to say that finances aren't important, or that I'm trying to hide that information from you. If you ask me a direct question about what our scholarships are like, I'll tell you. But if the first thing out the gate is, how much money are you going to give me? It's well, hold on.
Right.
What do you want to study? Who are you? What's your name? What games do you play? So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. Let's see, what are some other thoughts on recruiting while we're on this subject? Yeah. A portfolio is good. So have some documentation ready, either a link to your op.gg or a link to your Twitch channel with some videos of things that you've done. That's really helpful. I had another thought. It'll come back around to me in a moment.
While you're thinking about that, I had a question about that. With your portfolio, do you prefer, sorry about that, kick my mic. Do you prefer students to have that social media presence already? Does that help them if they have lots of followers on Twitter and have a Twitch that might be semi-successful? Does that boost them up in your ranks, or does that not necessarily compute?
Yeah, not necessarily. I would say so if they're trying to do that. So, for example, at Drury, we offer scholarships in our esports program beyond just competing in our teams. So, if you want to do social media management or graphic design, videography, streaming, shoutcasting, any of those things, we offer the same scholarships for that. So, if that's what you're trying to do, right, if you want to be our social media manager, then some amount of expertise or previous experience or a portfolio of work is helpful. But no, I don't really. This is, I think, what I was going to say. The only things that I really look for are the ability to give and receive constructive criticism and a drive to put in the work. I can teach you any skill. We can teach you how to be a graphic designer or how to speak better as a shoutcaster or how to be a better League of Legends player. But if you have an attitude that, man, I'm great at what I do. If our team plays poorly, it's because they made a mistake. It's because they didn't play around what I needed. And even if that may be true, you can't go in with that attitude. You have to be able to set your ego aside, step back from yourself, and view your own play and your own attitudes objectively, and listen to the criticism, constructive or otherwise, hopefully constructive, that your teammates are giving you, and realize that if I say, "Hey, man, in a situation like that, you really need to back up. Like we didn't have it warded. You guys are pushed way too far up in lane." I'm not saying I think you're a terrible person and you're awful at this game, and how dare you be so terrible. I'm not making a comment on you as a person. I want us to be better at the game, and there's some strategies you can use to communicate that more effectively. I like to use, especially if teams are kind of at each other's throats and having some synergy issues. I always like to encourage them to use I statements. So rather than like, "Hey, you messed up this gank, you did this," it's more, "I feel this way. What I was trying to do in this scenario was this, and I wasn't able to do that because these other things were happening." So rather than externalizing and saying, "This is your fault, you are the cause of the problems," talk more about yourself and how you feel. They talk about themselves and how they feel, and then you see where the disconnect is, and you try and line those up and come to a closer understanding of how you want to play the game together. An analogy I use a lot when talking with different stakeholders about the importance of high school esports, about the importance of youth esports in general. If you think about a traditional sport, if you're an elite basketball player, you've been playing since you were 7, 8 years old. You've been playing in AAU. You've played travel ball. By the time you get to college, you've been on 10 different teams. You've been coached in many different ways, in many different styles. You've been on a lot of different teams, learned a lot about the game from a variety of perspectives. You could be top 100 on the server in League of Legends and theoretically never have played on an organized team, or if you did, it was just online, and you've never been in a room and had to look your teammate in the eye sitting across from you or next to you. So, man, our league scrim is getting out of hand.
And
can you hear that?
On that topic, that's like something I'm noticing with my guys is we had a lab this year, and I had the same group from last year to this year for Overwatch, pretty much, and their attitudes are different. My league guys' attitudes are different. They're all changing in really positive ways because they're in the same room and realize, hey, it's not just me yelling at a microphone. It's the dude who's 2 feet from me who we need to do stuff with.
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's been really helpful just to see these changes with my atmosphere, especially with my JV environment, who's a lot of development. They're responding a lot more positively when it's in person versus online.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the whole point is that getting them together. They're used to yelling at their teammates or raging at someone and being like, "Oh yeah, it's all your fault," as they're typing the keyboard, not actually seeing the reaction of that person that they're talking to online, and getting them in person. I had the same thing even just happened today in our game today that we played in the NASEF League. One of my players plays from home, mainly because we have a couple computers that are busted at our lab, so she just stays at home and plays from home, and it just ends up being easier for her. And right now, that's the best way for us to do it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to play at all. We'd have to play 4 people because we have Overwatch and League going at the same time, so we're short at least one computer, if not multiple. and they were getting upset with her because she wasn't there and she didn't communicate and this and that. And she normally isn't one of the big talkers in the group. She kind of just takes orders and leads, and so they were getting frustrated. I'm like, guys, just calm down. Like, we have to work on how to do this, and so that's what we have to come back to. Trying to figure out how to fix some of these bad habits that these kids have, because they're not used to sitting next to the person that they're raging against because they failed or they fed or whatever it might be. And we, as high school coaches, I think that's what all of us who are actually coaching are trying to do. And some of the other ones who aren't coaching, or we try to push them into that way, because a lot of our kids have never played those sports that you're talking about. They've never been coached. They don't know what it is. And not only have they not played live in front of with their teammates against someone else, like, they've never really been on a team before. Like, yeah, they've played games and talk trash while they're playing games, but never actually known what good communication is. And working with that, I think, is one of the hardest things for high school coaches.
Something that's kind of unique to esports with high school settings, a lot of them haven't really ever had that setting. And so when you try to get them together, they have to learn how to communicate in general. And a lot of times, especially with games that I don't know terribly well, like Overwatch, I just encourage conversations more than tell them how to play the game. And it's trying to get them to talk more and just work as a group instead of 6 random dudes in a server.
Yep. That's one of the hardest things, I feel like, when you're first starting out with people who've never played together. The analogy that I was getting at earlier is, and this is something I use especially with traditional athletics folks or administrators who might not fully understand esports, is the challenge is, it's like the difference between street ball and full 5v5 basketball. You can become amazing at the game of basketball playing street ball, but you're not going to win against a coordinated team that's actually working together and utilizing team strategies if all you want to do is get the ball and try and drive around people and take all the shots yourself. It doesn't work. So that's a big challenge a lot of collegiate coaches face, is they assemble a roster of 5 amazing players that have never really had to be on that team together, look their teammates in the eye. So yeah, having effective conversation is important. Hearing everyone out, because that can happen a lot, is I see this a lot even with my own team, and it takes them time to get used to it. They don't even necessarily realize they're doing it. They have an opinion, and the other person is talking, and they're just waiting for their opportunity to tell them why they're wrong. And maybe not even in a rude way. They're not trying to go like, you're wrong and you're an idiot and here's why. It's more just like, no, but my perspective. And it's like, yes, you can have your perspective, but make the effort to at least understand where they're coming from, because maybe they have a new way of thinking about it. Or maybe their opinion does come out of a lack of understanding that you possess. And if your first thought is to go, no, you're wrong, and here's why, they're not going to want to listen to that. So what you say is just as important as how you say it. So that's another thing as well. Is like, even if they end up coming to a correct conclusion, I'm not happy with it if they did it by arguing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I totally get that. And I've been having a talk with one of my players too about, him saying, oh, he's bad. He doesn't want to play ranked because he doesn't want to get made fun of. And he just never really played ranked ever when he played league. And I'm like, just play. You're not, whatever rank it says you are right now, you're not that player. You just haven't played. And trying to get him to we had a long talk today about coaching and how, he's not bad. I know he's at least silver, if not gold level player. He just has to get out of that grind and that mindset of that he's, he doesn't want to feel bad for losing, and getting over that hump and being like, and telling him like, hey, some of the best coaches are literal bronze 5, wood, 5, iron 5 type players, but they just have a different mentality about the strategy of the game. They can coach it. They just can't actually physically do the mechanics of the game. I mean,
and especially with League, that's really true, because League's a very thinking heavy game where if you just can outthink someone, you're 90% of the way there. It's just, if your hands don't follow, it's going to have a harder time. So especially with League, like, I had players who were gold last year, and then they started playing at plat to low diamond level with just a little bit of thought.
Yep. And that's another thing that I say a lot, especially when I'm talking with a recruit, because I tell them, I'm mainly looking for someone who can give and receive constructive criticism, who's passionate. Skill is important, and your overall skill is what's going to determine what roster you start on, like where you begin in sort of the pecking order. And so I know where to place you with similarly skilled teammates and what you need to work on. But overall, solo queue rank to me does not really matter, because it's not
just monster.
Yes, it's the street ball to the full 5v5 basketball. You can be a role player and succeed in team play and not necessarily be rewarded for that in solo queue because you're doing things that require, you could be an amazing support and putting out vision in just the right spots and setting up potential plays around neutral objectives. But if your team doesn't look at said wards and take in the information and make a good decision, right? So that's huge. Is setting aside that mindset that like, oh, the game says I'm bad. Like the game tells me that I'm bad, and other people are going to see it and they're going to think I'm bad, and they're not going to respect me because why should they? I'm only in X and they're in Y. Doesn't matter. Solo queue is simply a reflection, or your solo queue rank is simply a reflection of how good you are at solo queue, and that's not the same. It's similar, but it's not the same game, and it's also a reflection of how much time you put in. I imagine most of your, all of your players are obviously students, but I imagine a lot of them are involved in other things inside and outside of school, and they have to take care of their little sister, and they have jobs and families and other extracurriculars. You can't get to Diamond if you play 50 solo queue games in a season unless you were already a pretty high MMR and you win 45 of those games. Right. So if you're in Silver right now, it's going to take you a couple hundred games to get up to Plat, to get up to Diamond, and you probably just don't have the time to do that, to be honest. And it also requires...
the grind is so slow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Games can last really long. Certain games are just unwinnable. A big piece of advice I give to those that are looking to climb, and this is pretty common. This isn't, patented wisdom for me or anything, but is to understand that, everything's split into thirds. So there's a third of the games you're just going to win because someone on your team is smurfing, or the early game went amazingly well. Doesn't matter how you play. It's just like your team won it. And then there's another third that you're just going to lose. Your top laner is just running into the enemy over and over and over again. They're 0-10, 5 minutes in. Like, there's certain games that are kind of out of your control, but there's another third that are going to be close. And if you make the right decisions and minimize your mistakes, you'll win more of those. So you need to win as many of those coin flip games as possible, because you lose a third, you win a third. If you lose that middle third, you're at all of them, you're at a 33% win rate. If you win all of those, you're at a 66% win rate. And if you're 55% or higher, you're climbing steadily.
That's fine.
So all you have to do is win the coin flips. Don't get upset by the games that are totally out of your control when you lose, and don't get cocky about the games that were totally out of your control when you won because you got carried.
Right. And don't think that you're good for winning that third of those games because of that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got a really good point in there talking about mindset of a lot of players have this, either it's high as a kite or we are dead weight. They have this no middle ground in their mindset of, oh, we lost the game, let's get them next time. A lot of them just see it as, oh, the season's over, get out.
Yeah.
And a lot of players, especially teams that have low win rates in general, it's keeping them positive is really hard.
You have to encourage a growth-focused mindset, and that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah. Can you write that, how to do that? Because I didn't
right.
Not only for my team, but also for all my classes. And
right. Yeah, it's incredibly hard to implement and actually internalize that into your life. But that's something that'll help you no matter what you do. If you look at everything you do as an opportunity to be better and not to get down on yourselves when you make mistakes or you mess up or you put your foot in your mouth. I've done it so many times. The only reason I am where I am in life is because I was thankfully in a supportive enough environment to make mistakes safely.
Yeah.
And not have my whole life fall apart because of some of them. And you learn from them, whether that's in life or in League of Legends or in Overwatch, being reflective, looking back on what happened, and not just writing it off as like, oh, they're better. It's like, well, yeah, you lost. They killed you a bunch. Of course they were better, but why are they better? What is it that they are doing that you're not? Don't just... I think in esports, obviously, maybe being smarter is the equivalent of sort of being stronger, right? I'm never going to be in the NBA. It doesn't matter how good I get at particular skills. I'm barely 6 feet tall. I'm 160 pounds sopping wet. It's not in the cards for me genetically.
Right.
And I think maybe being, naturally gifted with intelligence is going to give you a bit of an advantage. But I believe just about anybody could become a professional player in an esport. I don't think that you're just like barred from success purely from genetics for the most part. And it's all your attitude and how you approach the game. So yeah, I think it's definitely doable. They're asking questions. Oh no, that's just kind of about your Overwatch rules generally.
Yeah.
You want to field that?
Well, we're doing 3 maps because it's a map differential thing. So you always have to play 3, and first to 3 points is gonna be a bit weird because that's gonna be a best of 5 then, which takes a lot longer than just playing 3 maps. Because best of 5 could go to 5 maps. So we're doing the 3-point structure or the 3-map structure because it gives us a clean map differential and a clean winner. It's always 2-1 or 2-1-1 if we have a tie somewhere. We had a
Yeah,
fourth map
I think
winner.
we're trying to keep the games to be short enough to where kids, because we have a big discrepancy of kids who play from school and kids who play from home, and trying to find a time where all of that meets up is pretty ridiculous to try and do. So that's kind of why we put it in that time. And if we were to do best of 5, you push out a bunch of kids who can only play from school. Like my kids literally finished their game, had like 3 minutes to pack everything up and get out of our lab because we have to be out at 6 o'clock. So
I think my guys would flip over best of 5s because we would not have the time for that.
yeah.
But yeah, made some really good points there. And one thing I need to ask you about is, when you're looking at recruits, do you look for a highlight reel of some sort, or what do you want to see from them to judge skill besides just the tryout?
So I have a very different approach than I think a lot of other coaches might. And maybe it's just like a volume thing. Maybe a stronger, more well-established program has to be more selective. But I don't even necessarily do a tryout. I might watch them play. But to me, it's all mental. It's all their attitude. I can, like I said, I can help someone become better at a game. I can teach new skills. But it's going to be very hard for me if you're 18 years old and done with most of your growing, and you're a jerk. Like, I can do that. I can help, but you have to want to.
But you have to want to
have
first,
an open
yes.
mind.
Yes.
So most of my tryouts, if you will, with recruits is conversations. I like to talk a lot with them and ask them about their outlook on the game and how they view strategy and what they think their strengths and weaknesses are. Because I'm really looking for, like I said, the ability to give and receive constructive criticism. And I'm looking for someone with high metacognition, as in being able to think about your thinking, being self-reflective. That is one of the hardest things, I think, to teach. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. It's so much easier to just sort of look at every other external factor and not look inward. But so those are some of the biggest things I look for. That said, a highlight reel helps. But once again, that's just sort of cherry picked. You could play 1,000 game of League of Legends and I'll get a pentakill in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah. No,
just
for sure.
sheer luck of them walking into me.
My kids always get like freaked out because they're we're like a mediocre team right now, and most of our kids have never played any kind of competitive, and a lot of our school kids in school have never even like had ambition to try and do that, and they're like, oh, he's mastery 7, and I'm like, anyone can get mastery 7 in anything. You just got to keep queuing it. You can lose every game and still hit mastery 7. So I think it's important.
I have 12 mastery 7s, and they're all on dumb tanks.
Exactly my point.
Okay, dumb tanks and Echo. I got that.
But yeah, so that's the whole thing is like you do have to get in that mindset as it's more about mental. And I think when I first started coaching, I never really played ranked league. Like I started messing around with it with a friend for a little bit, and I think I ended up like placing bronze or silver like my first time I ever actually competed rank, which wasn't until like season 4 maybe. I think I have quite a few seasons where I didn't play ranked at all because I've been playing this game since it came out. And once I actually started coaching and thinking about, okay, how am I going to coach these kids to be better, and how am I going to figure out how to do that? Like I started thinking about my own game, and I ended up climbing the very first time from, I believe like silver 4, silver 5, all the way up to plat 3.
And I've seen my play improve too since coaching. It really has gotten better.
And just like being like you said, being cognizant of what I'm doing and how I'm learning and how I'm getting better at this. I think it's important for everyone to stop and stop and take a look at their gameplay. Because nowadays kids are like, oh, lost that one, let's queue up for the next one, and then lost that one, queue up for the next one, and then you get on this grind and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna win eventually, and it's like, yeah, you will, but if you never actually stop and take that time to look back at what you did wrong, you're never gonna get yourself better as a player. Yeah, you might get that, like you said, that 30% where you're just gonna get carried and you might win, but did you actually learn anything by queuing up that next time instead of actually reflecting on what you did before?
Exactly.
Sarah.
Right. You have to treat you playing League of Legends, if you want to be competitive, if you want to get better, as practice rather than playing a video game. For the longest time, if I played League of Legends, it was to relax and it was with my friends and I wasn't particularly trying that hard. But if you want to get better, if you want to climb, you have to go in, like I said, with that growth-focused mindset. And with the idea in your head that it does not matter if I win this game or the next 10 games, because I'm never going to climb and get to my goal if I don't get better. If you get better, you will eventually climb. You'll eventually pull out of the loss streak. Take as much of a geologic time view as you can, rather than just like, I lost 5 games in a row, therefore I must be bad. It's like, no. Go into the game, do everything you can, disregard things that are out of your control, so the person who DC'd or who's inting or who's flaming everybody, and think about what... Right, exactly. And think about what you could have done differently. So when I first picked up this game, I played for a couple of years just for fun, and then I tried to get a lot better. And I was watching a bunch of LCS and thinking a lot about strategy, and a lot of my growth in that time came from reviewing my games and thinking about how I could have been sort of a better floor general, because I wasn't amazing mechanically, and I would often play jungle, or AD carry, so depending on...
depressing roles.
Right, yeah. So either I was in the position to sort of press the go button, or I just sort of had to follow along with the team. Either way, I was in a sort of kind of behind the scenes quarterback position where I could say, hey, left, right, like, we need to go for the Baron here, or we need to go for the Dragon here, or we need to set up vision so that they don't take it. Whatever it was, I found that I was having a lot of success by keeping a level head, not tilting, and being sort of a coach in the chat. And that's a skill unto itself, right? If someone is freaking out and flaming, there's actually a skill to defusing them and getting them on your side and building consensus. So I improved a lot at that. And then I graduated college and I worked as an English teacher in South Korea for a year. So I got to play in the Korean server. Had amazing ping.
You missed that ping?
Yeah, I do. I had like 8 ping. But I didn't know the language very well. I could read it, but I couldn't type it. And if you typed in English, they would just assume you were Chinese.
What?
And yeah, that was a weird thing, because there's not as nearly as many Western English speakers. So, but there's a lot of Chinese players that play on the Korean server, and
also
they would
speak
know English rather than...
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people would write you off because they're like, go back to your own server. They didn't like that the Chinese players were playing on their server. So I couldn't type much is the moral of that story. And I improved a lot on my mechanics. So I focused more on like what I can do, how I could have better clicked the buttons, and how I could have better played around things. So that was sort of a tangent to say that focus on your play and the things that you could have done differently, and disregard the result. As long as you take something away from every game instead of sort of mindlessly face rolling just to kill time and have fun. And think about, are you really having fun, right? Like if you just kind of go in without an intention and you lose.
Does anyone really have fun playing League anymore?
I don't think so, but
I do sometimes.
I love the game. And here's another thing I did want to bring up now that I think about it. And thank you for leading me down another tangent. The reason I love League of Legends is not only because the game is very fun, but because it's very frustrating. Every game I play is an opportunity to test my mental fortitude.
Yeah.
And I still tilt to this day. There are still games where I'm just like, man, and I become a keyboard warrior. But
see, I'm the exact opposite. I can be untilted no matter how bad the game is going, and I will never surrender. Because there are plenty of games where it's been 3-2, somebody else just like, I'm just playing it out, and we end up winning the game. And I'm one that says that focuses and be like, okay, we can still win this if we play it correctly. We're not so far behind. It could be, I think I was down one game. It was like 15-4. And I'm like, they want to surrender at like 15 minutes. And I'm like, no, we can still do this. Our farm is good. Like, We're not. They might have a lot of kills, but we're not that far behind. Besides them running around, like we have a dragon or two, and it's like we can still do this. And all it takes late game is one misplay or one bad play, and it's league, so people are gonna be like cocky and running out by themselves, like I can kill the whole team, not ready for what you guys are doing. And I think that's, to me, like I am lucky where my computer desk I have here, I use a Nostromo I forgot, Orb Weaver, the side keyboard as my keyboard for League, and my actual keyboard's underneath in a drawer in my desk. So I never type in chat. Like I ping everything. I never type anything. So if you're like, oh, don't you rage and type in? I'm like, no, because I have to literally go like this.
A lot of work.
Pull out my drawer and type. It's like, no, it has to be something really important for me to step away from roll away from my desk to actually type something.
That's a good strategy. If you find yourself being a keyboard warrior a lot, put some barriers to entry in your way. One of my players had when he came here, he'd already reformed, but he'd had a history of being toxic. And one of the things that he did to sort of break himself of that habit is he just made his chat incredibly small, like as small as he could put it, just put it in the corner. Just got into the habit of not looking at it.
It works.
Well, and I tell my kids, like, hey, if you actually want to climb, literally just turn off all communication. Yeah. Like, leave pings on. That's about all you need, because everyone nowadays in League uses pings. Like, that.
Yep.
That's what it is. And if anyone's typing anything, it's probably either just trolling or just trying to get under your skin or calling you horrible. So I think it's really, really important to just literally focus on yourself and the game instead of worrying about, like you said, blaming someone else and telling other people what to do, because that's not usually constructive for 99% of the League players out there.
Yeah, it's very hard to do that.
The comeback stuff, Todd, you saw this with my guys last year. We had one game in a competitive setting where they wanted to FF at 15. They wanted to FF a competitive game. And I'm like, guys, just play it out. Come on.
Never.
And they ended up making a 12K gold comeback.
Yeah.
And I just look at that gold graph and said to Todd, like, what did I just witness? And that attitude really is something that you can't really teach. It has to be instilled in them.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of these games are won and lost in a very small area of real estate right here.
Yeah.
So if you can stay focused. Can I loop back around real quick?
Yeah, for sure. That's why we have you on here.
Something cool. So to Stevenator in chat, first of all, shout out to the Stevenator. Congratulations on your signing with Aquinas. Congratulations, my friend. I know their coach. You made a good choice.
Wait, that's how you pronounce that? Aquinas?
Aquinas, yeah.
I just thought it was Aquinas.
Same.
It might be. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But anyway, congrats, my friend. He said, I feel like high school esports players don't respect Twitter enough as a medium that you have to build yourself on. Twitter's super important in esports. I agree. When that question came up earlier, it's not something that I necessarily look for. If a recruit reaches out to me, I'm not going to make a value judgment on whether or not they have a Twitter. But if they have a well-ran Twitter with a decent header and they're professional and they're not just spamming memes all the time.
That's professional in some sense.
Well, it's in some extent.
Twitter?
Don't look at Mr. Kennedy Math's Twitter.
There's nothing on there.
There's a difference. Point being that I'll have a much easier time finding you if you have a Twitter, if you engage in conversation. My Twitter basically only exists for high school and college esports at this point.
Same.
I know a lot of people maybe want to avoid it because it's just a lot of arguing and a lot of bickering and a lot of toxicity. But man, there are some nice communities. Well, yeah, I enjoy that as well. But no, I agree. I agree with Steven that I think that is very important if you want to get noticed by collegiate recruiters. Once you're in college, if you're trying to work in esports, I can't tell you how many doors Twitter has opened for me just because someone was like, "Oh, you're that guy from Twitter. I remember the time we talked." Like my professional network has expanded almost entirely from Twitter and a little bit Discord as well. But like, yeah, that's.
I got all my recruiters out here through Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the recruiters and college people pretty much know now, like, Twitter is the sphere for high school and collegiate esports. And I think that's important to stress. And that's why I asked that question earlier, because, I mean, that's how I get most of my contacts with people. It's just like DMing on Twitter, or adding one of their messages and being like, hey, what about this? And I think it's it's really important for them to understand that atmosphere because there's so much else out there that they need to at least be aware. Like I try to tell schools, like, oh, do you guys have a Twitter for your esports? And like, no, not yet. I'm like, you have to get on there. That's how colleges are looking. That's where they're getting their information from. If you want your students to be recruited and get all this information, they're not gonna know about your school unless you're on Twitter. Like they're, you can call them up, but they're on. If you were on Twitter, they'd already know about your kids.
Yep.
And I'm trying to put together like videos and stuff, just showcasing my guys and getting stuff out there. So I want to get their name out there because these players deserve to get their name out there and get recruited. And it's really hard with thousands of high schools out there and not a very well-established network for recruiting for collegiate esports.
Oh yeah. So on that topic, I'm the head coach is my title, but functionally I'm the director of our program. An esports team is not a single team. It's really like a miniature athletic department at a college. Functionally,
we
yeah,
feel it.
and that's same at a high school. So
I have 6 teams. That. So,
so yeah, I'm coaching our league team while also doing my best to coach the other teams, but there's just not enough hours in the day, and they often practice at the same time. So I'm really more of their like manager or scheduler. So where was I going with this? The idea, I got a little distracted, sorry. There's just a lot to do. And recruiting is a never-ending process. I could always send another DM. I could always send another email. I could always reach out to another student.
Oh, God, that's going to be painful.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like I'm constantly behind, right?
Yeah.
At some point, I'm going to have to push something further down the docket, down the to-do list. So if you're interested and you want to play collegiate esports, like raise your hand. Like I'm doing my best to find you all, but there's just only so many hours in the day. And so if you are interested, raise your hand. Start up a Twitter, DM a coach on Twitter. Like make the first move. And most of the time, most of my recruits come from I reach out to someone or I post somewhere. I sort of make the first engagement. But if you're, I will talk to any recruit, and I'll talk to you for a good 30 minutes, even if up front I know that it's not going to work out or you're not going to be a good fit for our school either because you can't afford it or we don't have the major you want. I'll still talk to you about, whatever kind of questions you have, and then I'll refer you to another coach who runs a program that I think you'd be a good fit for. But take that first step, reach out, and that helps a ton. That helps so much.
Yeah, and that's what I try to get some of my players to think outside that, because we actually do have some pretty good players, and they don't have any kind of motive or like motivation to get into collegiate, and I think they don't see that even as an opportunity. I mean, even like our best our League of Legends player the past 2 years, both of the mid laners, the one from Palatine and the one from Jones, like I believe they're not even playing collegiate. I don't even think they're on like trying for. I think they might have been trying. One of them might have been trying for academy, but I don't know where that went because I haven't seen him lately.
I know Sweetways Clam Sparkle did get picked up by UCLA.
Nope.
No.
Purdue.
Purdue.
Yep.
Purdue? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember seeing that name pop up.
Yep. Yeah, because they've been on a lot of streams lately, so I've been seeing them. They got a pretty decent team there.
It's
but
really
I think
cool to see Illinois high school students going out there and doing stuff.
Yeah, and then he made a great climb. He originally was not at the top of his class when he started playing, and then not until his senior year did he really like peak and realize that he can be a master's level player. And a lot of our guys, we have challenger level players that could be really good, and they may or may not have that mentality to grow and learn, but I don't even think a lot of the kids are trying right now that are at that level, whether they're playing Fortnite or Rocket League or anything. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just Grandmaster. Nothing that important. And I'm like, that can open doors for you. Like, let that open doors for you.
Those are the big doors. Those, like, once you're at those levels, you're getting into like pretty big scholarship territory, or you're going to have a lot of offers. People, if you raise your hand and say, hey, I'm a junior in high school and I'm, Diamond 1, people are going to be lining up to talk to you and talk to you about their college, but that's not even the bar. It's so much. I don't want to say it's a low bar. That has a sort of a negative connotation. But my point is that you could be gold in League of Legends. There are still colleges that would recruit you.
Right. Well, and it's not just to play the team; it's also to be part of their program. Like you might have
Yes.
more to offer them than just being the best League of Legends player you can possibly be, because
Yep.
that might not lead up to being like gold level. But if you have great management skills, great broadcast skills, great audio mixing skills, like colleges are
Yep.
looking for all of these in their programs. And like you said, Drury does offer scholarships for kids who are not playing. Right? Is that you said that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
for
you're one
sure.
of the
And we're looking for a ton of them. So
right.
we have full teams in League and Rocket League, and a lot of them are interested in streaming, shoutcasting, but they can't do that and play at the same time. They can't shoutcast the game they're playing it.
I'd be pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. But so we need graphic designers, we need videographers, we need streamers and shoutcasters. We need, assistant coaches or analysts. I'm in my third year as a collegiate coach. I'm going to turn 30 this year. There's only a handful of people who started around the time I did who were like technically qualified, at least from the coaching perspective, because esports is so new. Just by sheer virtue of that, I was able to parlay a lot of my various experiences in leading student groups and being a mentor and overseeing a large budget and all these different things and recruiting in my college fraternity. And being a lifelong gamer, I kind of put that all together into a resume and said, here's why I think that I would be a good fit for this job. But almost no one was qualified to be a collegiate esports coach when a bunch of them started 2, 3, 4 years ago.
No, but I probably could have gotten one of those jobs like in the beginning, and I think a lot of people are getting jobs like that depending on what the programs are, and it's about those coaches raising the bars at those places, being like, hey, I'm trying to right now we're trying to get everything situated in Chicago, and the sports admin in Chicago was like, okay, so what would you want to be compensated? Like, how would this look compared to the other sports and activities? And I'm like, well, essentially, we're like you said, we're literally like activities directors in that field where we're managing 6 or 7 different teams plus coordinating, possibly buses if we're traveling for some of these tournaments or working with the equipment. Like we're literally have our own job to do this. So I was trying to, when I offered him, I was like, yeah, literally I work, in a season, which, there's actually 2 seasons if you want, depending on what you're playing in. Like I literally put in like 500 hours over the course of the year, doing this because it's literally at least an hour or 2 every day, if not, 3 or 4 plus the games, plus, the research and the stats. If I actually want to do this right.
I tried to do hour tracking for myself and I just gave up.
Yeah. I if I would have done that, I would have probably been very depressed.
So I said that though, not to denigrate myself or others. I was not qualified necessarily on paper for my first job when I started because no one was, because it's that new. The point being, you don't have to be an amazing player. NFL coaches, not all of them were former football players or even amazing football players now, obviously. You don't need to be the best to coach, maybe to be a positional coach, and it sure wouldn't hurt, but you don't have to be a diamond level player to end up as a coach, as a shoutcaster, as a videographer. And
I love the game.
We're trying to, exactly. We're trying to train the leaders of the future, the people who are going to come up after us and fill our roles when we move on to greener pastures, right? So there's a lot of opportunity. If you get plugged in right now, if you go to a college and you compete on a team for 4 years or as part of a program for 4 years, you're 10 times more qualified than anyone who started 3 or 4 years ago. There is a booming esports industry, and it's not just in the professional space. These skills are valued, and there's a lot to learn from the collegiate experience beyond just like, I really like playing League of Legends, and maybe I can get a little better. Like, there's so much more you can get out of that experience, and be really well positioned to have a pretty cool job at the end of it. As much as the work that we put in, and all the downsides that can come from this role, I still love it, and I think you guys do as well, or you wouldn't be doing it. But I mean, it's my job to watch people play video games, guys. Like that. Yeah. The looks I get from people when I tell them that that's my job, they go from disbelief to sheer jealousy.
Yeah.
Because when I first got in my lab,
what even is that?
When I first had my lab full of kids, I was like, man, this is my job. This is great. Yeah. I can't do this. I'm doing this every day. I'm in my lab every day with players, just doing stuff, and I can't get over it.
and there's a need for skilled professionals in this space. We're going to get there because we're building the ship while we fly it, but there's going to be a whole new crop of young people in the next couple of years that are going to knock it out of the park because they have the hands-on experience.
Once those kids realize that, oh wait, I can coach this. I know what I should be doing here. I just, in the game, you can't figure that out, and it's just about training people how to think about that while they're playing and doing that. And I think that's a really big thing and then working on it. Like I've always picked your brain about different skills or different things we can run with our teams, and some of my ideas I run by, like I wanted to do this year. I didn't get to do it this year, but I'm going to do it next year. Like one of our first practices, we're going to throw on the VR headset and they're going to play, Don't Stop Talking Until Nobody Explodes, that bomb game. Because I think that's
great.
That's perfect for communication and frustration and getting all that, because you're trying to get the right information out and it's not there. And I think that's like one of the best skills that we can teach these kids how to communicate in game is just under stressful situations, how do you communicate what you need to communicate so that they understand it?
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, no,
okay. I was going to say personally that the last thing I have a new team do, like at the start of the school year, the last thing I have them do is play their game. I try not to get them playing online before they get there because it's a lot easier to sort of have a bad first scrim online when they're not in the same room together and then write each other off. Yep. So I like to get them hanging out, playing any other game, talking about their interests,
and just getting to know each other, right?
Yes. Because if you build those friendships first, then going through the doldrums of the rough times, of tough losses, of disagreements is going to be much easier. And it's going to be a whole lot easier to compartmentalize sort of your personal relationship and your team relationship. Our guys will do VOD review and we'll have, not quite like yelling at each other, but we'll have, a pretty heated discussion about the particulars of how we should have played this fight out or what we should have done instead. And then we'll be like, all right, we're done. Cool. You guys want to go get dinner? Yeah, great. And then they're fine because they can separate those two things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is two separate things. It's like, I don't judge you as a person based on how you play this game. Like, you're still a great person and I can still, acknowledge you. I just want you to do these things a little better in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
And like that environment is really crucial to have, I think. My guys were a lot better once they've gelled together because before it's just a bunch of random people.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to build at my school, and just getting the culture of the school, breaking a lot of the culture that's already at my school is just a big thing. And look, we have a lot of freshmen coming in, so we can work on that and do that. And hopefully next year we'll actually have programs, because now I have 3 or 4 coaches working with me that we can start to develop some of these techniques across all of our games. To do it, because I think that's the hardest thing is like, you're at your school, if you're the only coach, you're running 6 different games and have no help for it. I'm lucky enough where I have 3 like really good full-time coaches, and then one that'll step in when we need somebody to hop out with something, but 3 of them that really want to be hands-on and help the kids grow. And I think that's the most important thing, is that we're working with them to help them get better.
And like my biggest challenge with that, especially, is I'm more or less one head coach, and I have assistants who come in for particular games on particular days, but they're not there consistently. They have things going on, and so like it's more or less just me. And with just 3 teams or 3 games and a total of like 30 something players, it's still hard to manage sometimes.
Oh yeah, it can get tough. So something we just started doing, because we're working with our local high schools and a new land center that just opened up here in town to facilitate sort of a season 0 for a local high school esports league. Our cool. School district, Springfield Public Schools, is actually the largest school district in Missouri, because the various school districts in St. Louis and Kansas City are, there's a bunch of different ones rather than one large one. So there's 5 massive high schools in SPS, plus a Catholic school, plus on and on. And then there's, a few schools within 10, 20 minutes of here that are also pretty big. And we're working with them to try to get that off the ground. And at Drury, our students have to do sort of like a service learning credit at some point, some kind of volunteer work or mentorship. And our Rocket League captain is actually fulfilling that credit by working with the local high school teams. That's awesome. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities. If you're a high schooler looking to go to college, you can give back and work with high schools around the college you go to, or even just work remotely with your team as an alumni. So that's huge, and something I would encourage all of you to do, all of you players in Illinois, to stay plugged in with your teams and offer what expertise you can when you have the time. But that is maybe also a strategy for y'all or for other high school teams, is to plug in with their local universities and see if there's any students there that are looking to maybe become a coach at some point or just want to get that experience. One of the best ways to learn something is by teaching it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we mentioned it earlier. You guys got a lot better after having coached. I find that I make much smarter decisions in game. I'm not really climbing because when do you guys even get to play video games? I don't know about you, but
I mean, rarely. I also have an 18-month-old and a 6-year-old at home, so.
Oh wow, okay, well, so, yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Runeterra lately because it's like, what? I can walk away and just surrender. All right, I gotta go deal with that problem because someone's crying.
Right.
In this play, you don't play ranked.
But yeah, I don't get to play too many games anymore. Or if I do, I'm playing kind of like single player strategy games. I'm playing Civ.
I mean, I'm playing for like maybe an hour a night, if that, and it's usually like I'm already staying up way past when I should be staying up.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
If you ever get frustrated with your coaches, kids, understand that they're sacrificing a lot to facilitate something for you that they desperately wish that they had when they were younger. I imagine you've heard that plenty of times when you're talking with recent alumni or other kind of young people in your campus community. They're like, man, how come I didn't get to do this in school? It's like,
Yeah.
well,
I heard some parents are really interested in gaming, and like they're like, man, I wish I had this.
We put a post on social media, and we had like the very beginning of the year when we had the new lab and showed a bunch of videos about how the teams were all creating, and they were all like had like 40, 50 comments on it, like, oh my god, where was this? I wish this was here just last year. I just graduated. And it's like, sorry, we got it here as quick as we could.
So real quick, I had another question sort of on that topic of getting it started and dealing with community perception. Have you gotten much pushback? Obviously, I think some of you guys have from admins, or there was some skepticism at first, like, why are we encouraging our students to play video games? Do you get that from parents or other community members as well? Is that just an admin thing because they're worried about liability and other things, or are you finding that it's hard to get the whole community on board?
I actually had zero resistance from anyone.
That's great.
Superintendent on down is all in. Parents are all in. I have a teacher's son on my team, and they're all in.
Wow,
it's great.
That's awesome.
Some coaches were getting kind of concerned that I would start stealing players from their teams. And right now, I am time sharing a couple players with track because some of them seem to forget how scheduling works. And like, oh yeah, I gotta miss the match this week. You gotta what?
Yeah.
So it's been like supportive from everyone in my district, and I'm very thankful for it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the least place where I get pushback is from parents. Like, that's usually the ones that are supporting, because then they're like, oh wow, wait, my kid's actually good at this. Oh, my kid, this is not just him playing down in the basement by himself. Like, he's actually communicating, and he's actually a leader, and he's actually this. And it's like, yeah, that's your kid. Like, they're great. And they're like, no, not my. Yes, yours, that one right there, that's sitting in the chair. And
it's
so,
also like really, they like getting kids involved too.
Yeah, and then it gives them like, oh wait, so it wasn't a horrible thing for me to give this kid a controller when he was like 5 and let him start playing. And it's like,
right,
oh, it probably wasn't the best idea, but at least now he's good at it. Like,
right. That's what my mom said when I told her that this was going to be my first proper career.
Oh boy.
She was like, wow, I guess there was worth it having you play all those games. But two, that's kind of the general argument I make anytime that I talk to an admin or a parent or someone who's skeptical. Why are we encouraging our kids to play video games? And thankfully, I actually say this more as like an example of what you could say rather than the actual number of times I've said it, because I also don't get too much pushback. But I've had to say this before. The general argument is they're doing it anyway. They're playing these games anyway. So we can let them be in their mom's basement, or we can bring them together into a shared space where they can learn from each other, where they can be part of a team, where they can learn teamwork, communication, responsibility, all the things you get from traditional sports. And the other major talking point that I like to use is that it's a democratizer. There's no, it's co-ed, and there's no advantage you get, male or female. People with disabilities can play. One of the best collegiate League of Legends players in the country. He should probably be in academy. If I were a coach, I'd probably bring him into my academy team. Is Misty Stumpy. That's a name he chose, by the way, because he only has one hand. So he has a
What does he
stump.
play?
He was a top laner for Columbia College.
I was like, he
Oh,
played
cool.
for big school too. It was the Columbia. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember. I watched
yeah,
the games. I
he's one
think
of the
last
best
year with him.
players in Collegiate Esports.
Yeah.
And you know, that doesn't hamper him. So it's the great democratizer. Anyone can be on the esports team. Not everyone can be on the basketball team, even if they want to. Like, man, I'd really love to have that experience. Well, too bad. We have 15 roster spots and you're 4 feet tall. Like, sorry. That's not the same in esports. Anyone who wants to do this can put in the time and get good and be a contributing member of their team. So those are the reasons I love it, and those are sort of the main talking points I use when anyone is skeptical.
Oh yeah, and I have a JV team for Overwatch where we have 6 starting spots, of course, but I have 12 guys in the team because I'm like, well, you want to go play games and just learn? Okay, come on in. I obviously can't take 50, but with just an extra 6, I got plenty of room.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually had a kid today watching our game for League, and he's like, "So what is this game that they're playing? I don't understand." And I, gave him a little breakdown, and he's like, "Oh, well, this guy's doing this, and then wait, he's backing up because they know there's more guys there." And I was like, "Okay, you're getting the strategy." And he's a casual gamer, plays Call of Duty, Fortnite, that type of stuff, and like him watching this was like, "Wow, this is a really mental game." I was like, "Well, it's also skill based too. Like you can't just." It's not all mental, but definitely there's a lot more mental in this than there is in some of the other games that you play, like Fortnite and Call of Duty. Although those games can be mental, like there's a lot more mental in something like League. So I think it's really important. And I was like, wow, he actually peaked it and started getting things that people might not understand just by watching for 10 minutes while they're playing.
Yep. Stephen Nader made another really good point. Esports gives those students an academic standard that they have to reach. Yeah, that's kind of one of the main arguments for high school activities generally. And that's just another demographic to reach. And I'll tell you this from my personal experience working with recruits. It's sort of 50-50. 50% are incredibly intelligent, have amazing grades, and are involved in everything. They played another sport, and they were in band and drama, and they did all of it. The other half are just as intelligent, but their grades are not very good, and they did nothing in high school. So the potential was there, the ability was there. They just never had a reason to care. So that I think is huge. This is the thing that speaks to them, and yeah, exactly. Now they do. Now they have a reason. And I know we're probably close to wrapping up, but I wanted to throw in kind of one more thing because this is often overlooked. But on that, part of it being a democratizer, I think that inclusion is very important. I think we all need to do our part to make esports in general as inclusive as we can. Something that I've started doing if we have a group of high schoolers visit our facility, or if I'm talking to a bunch of young people about esports, one of the new things I open with is I say, hey, I want to ask you some questions, and I think I know all the answers to them already, but bear with me. I'm trying to make a point. So let me ask you some questions. Question number 1: how many of you have played online competitive multiplayer video games? I go, great. How many of you have had someone say or type something rude at you? They all raise their hand. I'm like, great. How many of you have ever done that yourself? And to a T, almost every, yeah. Well, a lot of people do. And I preface it by saying, not all the time, not are you an evil, toxic person every time you play, but how have you done it before? Have you ever said or typed something rude to someone? And everyone raises their hands generally. And my point is hey, you do your part. You have to go out of your way to try and change that culture. And there's a lot of reasons that it is the way it is. I'm turning 30 this year. When I was a young person, video games were a toy, and they were mostly marketed to boys. Now I think we have a better and broader understanding of video games as an art form, as a particular type of entertainment, just like music or TV or movies. And no one now says, oh man, music is for girls. Boys don't listen to music, and only boys watch movies. That's absurd. So we're getting to the same place with video games. It's silly to say video games aren't for girls or girls are bad at video games. Yeah. We're at basically 50-50 in terms of the population of video game players. Now, certain demographics tend to like certain games more than others. Overwatch is more popular with women than, say, League of Legends might be. But that's kind of besides the point. So there's the long time cultural bias of marketing that says this is a toy for boys, but then it's how they're treated. I've never been harassed purely for being a boy in Overwatch voice chat, but if I play for 3 hours, I'm going to hear at least one woman get harassed by some jerk on our team, and it's easy to just go, they're a jerk, write them off. But you're not on the receiving end of that. So I'm not saying you have to go in and be the white knight that shouts these guys down every time, but say something. Be like, hey man, that's not cool, and then mute them or ignore them. But do your part. Think about any time that you're typing something rude, that you've been on the receiving end of that, and realize why you're doing it too. It's not it's not because you're a bad person, but it's because there's that layer of separation and anonymity, and you think that it's okay, but it's not. You would never say those things or type those things to someone in real life. You just wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that PSA out there. I'm sure everyone watching this is a perfect angel and has never been rude to someone in their lives. But
have you been reading the chat?
Yeah.
It's mostly my students harassing me.
That's fair,
Mostly
guys.
It's honestly just my entire Rocket League team.
Hey, at least they're still involved. They're still watching the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate them.
I don't even have my trolls in here who created my graphics for me and the music and everything.
I need to work on that thing for the Rocket League 1v1s, don't I?
Yeah, well, as we wrap up here, I just want to say thanks for coming out. I think this was probably like the most productive and influential call. I'll definitely be putting this one up and recommending even my players to watch it just to listen to what you had to say, because I think your take on this collegiate esports thing is the right way and the way that everyone should be handling it. And I think if anyone wants to reach out to you, your Twitter's up there. It's Coach Archon on Twitter. Drury Esports is their school Twitter. And then they are in Springfield, Missouri, so they are not too far away if you're looking to stay semi-local, not go across the country. But definitely reach out to him if you guys have questions about collegiate esports, and not just about his team. In general, he's always been a great resource. And I mean, obviously, if he doesn't have time at the moment, he'll get back to you when he can. But we do want to showcase some of these coaches out there that really do care about the esports and care about the industry and care about the kids. They're not just there to recruit the best players and get the best team. They're there for the best, overall esports environment.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the high praise. It means a lot coming from you guys. I really respect what y'all have been doing. I think that approaching high school esports kind of from the bottom down, grassroots, building community. I don't mean to speak for you, but I imagine you started this because it's something your students wanted, and you saw how positive it's been in their lives, and you put in a lot of work to facilitate that. So I really respect and admire the work you guys have been putting in, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Are we doing LAN finals at RMU again?
Yeah. Well, not RMU, because they're going to be in the middle of a move.
Right. That's right.
So we are doing LAN finals. We're actually going to have 3 weeks of it. So depending on what game you're looking for, Fortnite, then Overwatch, then League, which probably you'll just be League, but in case you're...
Oh, no, I need some Overwatch people, so...
Yeah. So Overwatch will be... Overwatch is the last week in April. The last week.
We need Rocket League, too.
We
already have a really strong Rocket League team. We need like a Champ Plus Rocket League player if you want to play in CRL next year.
My entire Rocket League team is all freshmen, so you're not getting any of them.
Ah, bummer.
Much as they're spamming my chat right now.
But yes, so end of April is the last weekend in April is Overwatch, and then League is going to be May 2nd.
Awesome.
But we haven't disclosed those. We'll be also putting out, I wanted to have it ready for today, but I think the teacher did not have a chance to it. We have a new liaison for all of our recruiters for our server. One of our coaches is really interested in gathering information for students, so they're going to be reaching out to you guys to ask for like one-sheeters and facts about your college and just getting you to sign up so we can be on a mailing list for you. So like, hey, we have this thing coming up, or hey, what are you guys looking for now? So we can have that one person to contact, so we can then disperse information and you can request information from us to help you direct you to what you're looking for.
Perfect. So, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's something we want to offer to the colleges, so they're like, hey, you're not just another 17 discords in a folder of all the different states and organizations that you're trying to, hey, just here's my copy pasta from my other 17 servers I'm in.
Yep, I'm in hundreds of discords, it seems like, so
yeah,
that's much appreciated.
Yeah, I've been trying to cut my discords down to like 16 or so.
Folders, man.
You gotta
go with the folders.
I have folders. I have folders for games. I have folders for esports, and I have folders for like general servers for like huge games.
Smart. Yeah, see, I'm not in on that. Everything I'm in is a community of some sort or some place where I can ask a question and get an answer about some software. So lots of Discord bots, lots of teacher programs. They'll be like, hey, how do you do this on there? And they're like, oh, here you go. Like that's how I want. That's how customer service is now, instantaneous.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
So.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks. Yeah, we definitely cannot wait this long to do it again. So maybe we'll have you on before we come out for finals, before you come down for finals, or if not, we'll definitely over the course of the next couple of months just to catch back up.
That'd be great. Anytime. I'd love to chat.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. That is the podcast for tonight. We went hour and 13 with actually real good content. That's not our typical Keith and me show that we're just doing rambling on. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying here. Let everyone else know how fun it was to troll Keith Kennedy in chat there, guys. Invite your friends.
God, I can't have a social media presence. They're just always here.
They're always there. They're always there. Otherwise, we will see you guys next Wednesday. Again, it'll probably be right after the Overwatch match. We do have League match tomorrow night. I don't know if we confirmed the time or if we're doing replays yet. Still double checking that.
6:30. I'm working on that. Coach Bruner, if you're in here, respond to me, please.
He is horrible sometimes at getting contact with.
I love the guy, but man, I need to get this done.
Yeah, send him a DM. That's usually the best thing that I do.
Already did.
Actually, send him a message on League, because as he's playing TFT, he'll actually answer.
Well, yeah.
He is I believe he's Diamond, or I think he's Diamond level TFT player.
Carry me.
Yes. All right, guys. Have a good night. See you. Thank you for joining us. And remember, just be better.